Hey, what's up YouTube? This is Toad, and today I'm going to be talking about how do you open your third eye. Okay, so basically, I'm going to just jump right into the how do you do it first, okay? So when you were a little kid, you saw static in the air, okay? Or you could call it a grid, you could call it snow, you could call it TV static, you could call it fuzz in the air. You saw something that wasn't there, that's right here where there's just air. Or you could be thinking that you're seeing atoms, or you're seeing air, or whatever. You saw that stuff. Now, you sure as hell ain't seeing atoms. You sure as hell ain't seeing air. It's definitely not snow. So, it must be something else. Well, it could be the way that we perceive light. It could be just a byproduct of our eyes doing weird things and making this static everywhere. But the thing is, when you grow up, you age and you learn to ignore the static, and then after a while you focus and focus and focus and you still can't see the static, okay? Well, the opposite is true if you focus on the static daily. If you don't give up looking at the static and trying to explore what it is or what it does, then the same thing is true. You'll experience more of the static. And if you focus on the static, you begin to see it better, you begin to see more of it, and eventually the static is thick, like fog sort of thick, and it's everywhere all the time. And then after that, after the thick fog state, then after that point you begin to be able to see objects clearly again. Okay, so there's a point where you have to pass through where your vision is actually impeded by the static that you're seeing, and they call this Hppd, or hallucinatory. Let's get this done. Hallucinatory persistent perception disorder. Hppd, okay? It's normally caused by psychedelic use. It can also be caused by holotropic breath work a lot. What Hppd actually is where your brain activates neural pathways outside of the average human neural pathways in response to sensory perception, extrasensory perception. So ESP and Hppd are both extrasensory perception. It's an alteration to your sensory perception. Now, with the third eye, it's not just visual. It's called the third eye because it's perceptionatory, or perceptional, but it's not just visual. When you open your third eye, it also has to do with sound. Now, here's another phenomenon that happened when you were little. Ringing. Now, they call this tinnitus, okay? Ringing in the ears, when you hear ringing in the ears. And it can be tinnitus. There is a condition that is caused by hearing really loud sounds repeatedly on a daily basis that causes tinnitus, which is where there's always a in your ears. Now, tinnitus caused by breath work and tinnitus caused by gun shooting are two different things, though they have the same sound. Basically, when you have tinnitus from meditation or breath work, that's actually not your ears malfunctioning due to damage. It's your brain creating signals that aren't there, or extrasensory perception, okay? So, just to drive that point home, Hppd is extrasensory perception. Now, getting back to the levels of static, okay? The more you focus on the static and the better you learn to see it after you get through the thick fog state and you get into a more balanced state of visualization of the static, you also realize that there's static in objects. So not just in the air or one line of static, like right here or something, or back there, wherever you see the static, but there's also static in objects, okay? And you learn that these different types of objects, like wood, cement, sand, stuffing, leather, they have different patterns in them, okay? And so you can actually differentiate materials by what pattern they have. So if you want to know if something is vinyl or if it's leather, you can look at the pattern of the static inside of the object and see if it's vinyl or leather. And that's an easy way to tell that it's extrasensory perception of reality rather than extrasensory perception or in addition to your perception, because you can use different patterns that exist within different materials to differentiate two materials, such as the difference between mica and real gold. You can actually tell the difference between those two by looking at their patterns within their static fields, okay? And that seems pretty far off, but this is actually after a long time of meditating and focusing on the static and also focusing on absorbing the static. And so the fourth level to this is, instead of just patterns within objects, okay, It's actually that you actually see the energy flowing through the object, the way that it flows through walls, the way that it flows through the floor. You can see the way that the static flows through someone's internal inside body. Okay? So the more you focus on the static, the better you get at looking at the static. And the better you get at looking at the static, the more you realize that it's not subjective, it's actually objective. Because it doesn't depend on how you perceive it. You also realize that it is some kind of energy field because it's manipulatable, okay? So, if someone fires a gun, the static actually shock waves out in little bubbles like that until it fades off and the shock waves are unnoticeable. I got hair on my tongue. Okay? Now, along with your visual evolution, when you focus on this static that's in the air, you also get auditory evolution, okay? So, first of all, it's going to start out with you hearing. It's going to start out as just ringing in your ears constantly, and eventually this ringing is going to get to where it's like all the time, and that's going to be annoying. And then it stops. It doesn't really stop, but the noise changes. So instead of just ringing, you'll instead hear something like angel singing for a while after you open your third eye to this level, okay? It could be angel singing. It could be also radio static. So instead of it's and for me, a lot of the time it's AOL. So it's like the sound that you hear on dial-up. The dial-up tone on a phone. There's a meme where Patrick is thinking and there's dial-up sound going, but yeah, that's the sound. Most of my audience is 35 to 40, and so you all know what that sound is. But yeah, basically, you could hear a lot of different sounds, but you can control what sounds you hear. You can also play music in your head, okay? So, in essence, when you open your third eye, you can begin to use your brain the same way you use a computer. So you open up basically the settings on your brain and you're able to manipulate them. You can change the song that's playing in your head. Here's another thing. Using the third eye, often when I'm in the car, just sitting, I'll hear rock and roll playing in my head and I'll just be like, and there won't be any music playing. And then we'll turn the radio on and it's the exact same song playing in my head. Because when you listen to a certain radio station with your third eye opened, you'll attune yourself to that radio station and you'll hear it in your head when you're near a device that picks up its signal, okay? And so that's another way to know that it's an objective experience that you're having rather than an entirely subjective experience. Even though everything is subjective, it's way more objective than it would first seem, okay? So that's the evidence that you can show yourself that this isn't an experience entirely created in your own head. First thing is, you're able to differentiate materials pretty accurately. You're able to know what song is playing on the radio without hearing the radio. So basically you're able to tune into the radio in your head. And you're able also, if you do breath work while your third eye is at a more active state, or your pineal gland producing more dimethyltryptamine, you can actually have x-ray vision. So you can use the third eye for x-ray vision. And I have used it for x-ray vision before, but I've never been able to control when I have x-ray vision. Okay, so at times before, I've been able to see rocks under the ground using blue outlines. I was able to see the blue outlines of rocks that are under the ground. I have no way of proving that, except one day I did. I saw a really small dot, and you can't really tell unless you move around where these things are. This thing looked close to the surface. So I was on a hike, and I saw this thing, because I was in like an x-ray vision burst or an x-ray vision episode, and I was like, well, I wonder if that's a real rock. So I dug in there. It was about this far down. And lo and behold, there was a rock there that was exactly shaped like I saw it shaped, with a blue outline that was like this. It was like a little circular rock with a bump on the side. And yeah, so that's another way that you can know. I'm not going to guarantee any of that can happen to you, but in my own experience, that's happened to me. I've been able to tell objective facts using my third eye. Now here's another thing. Hearing voices. You might open your third eye and start hearing voices and think that you have a mental disorder or schizophrenia or like bipolar disorder or something, but you don't. Okay, if you never experienced those symptoms, now here's the difference between psychosis or schizophrenia and opening the third eye. It's the same difference between driving a car, okay, at 30 miles an hour and getting flung out of a semi at 60 miles an hour. So someone with schizophrenia that's having severe symptoms and side effects from schizophrenia is having the equivalent experience of being thrown out of a car. Whereas someone who does work to open their third eye and is in control of the experience and can close it again, now I'm not saying you can close it again, but that can kind of close it again or ignore it, they're having the experience of driving a car at 30 miles an hour. That's the difference. So don't say that schizophrenia and psychosis don't exist, because they're very real conditions that can ruin people's lives, okay? Do I support all of the medicines given for those things? No. And that is because they give methamphetamine for ADHD. That's not okay. All right? So, and methamphetamine is Ritalin. Just to clarify, it's the same thing as Ritalin, okay? Now, pretty much, the deal is, when you open your third eye, you're not in control of what you sense. The same way as when you open your eyes, you're not in control of what you see, because it's there, okay? So you might see a spirit, okay? When you open your third eye, you might see a demon. I've seen demons. You might hear a demon voice that says 666, okay? And it could creep the fuck out of you. That's happened to me. You might hear, okay, you might be just on your way to sleep, you're falling asleep, you're feeling great, and then you hear, Josh, wake up! Oh shit, now you know my name. Well, I'm Josh. Hi. Anyway. But yeah, that's happened to me. That happened to me for a couple of months. I had a spirit that was fucking with me and waking me up in the middle of the night by saying, Josh, wake up! Really loud in my ear. And it's just me and my mom and dad that live at home, and the voice didn't match, and I know my mom cannot do impressions because she's tried, and it's really hilarious, but yeah. Basically, you're not in control of what you experience. Now, when you open your third eye, this exposes you to a whole different world. So now you're not just in a physical world with physical repercussions, but also in a spiritual world with spiritual repercussions, okay? So when you open your third eye, it becomes more important to sanctify your house or clear the energies within your house, okay? And this doesn't have to be a public event. There's so many people that use spirituality as a form of popularity or getting attention. Don't do that, okay? You don't even have to leave your room to clear your entire house's energy, okay? But it might help if you do leave your room to clear your house's energy. But that becomes important, and it also becomes important to basically shield your house from exterior entities entering your house, okay? So it becomes multiple world view, all right? Now, the third eye is not just responsible for ESP. It's not just responsible for adding extra sensory to your perception, but it's also responsible for clear sight, okay? Because it's not actually a dual world that you're seeing when you open your third eye, but a unified world instead of just half a world. It's a unified world that you're seeing. And that means that you see facts or you see lessons in life more clearly than if you were to not have your third eye open. Things become obvious rather than becoming badass, crazy conspiracy theories. I don't condone most conspiracy theories, and that's just a fact, because a lot of them are stupid as shit. Now, my own conspiracy theories I do condone because they are clear in my head. The dots line up in my head. When you open your third eye, your path, your truth, and your light becomes obvious to you, okay? So you can see the truth for what it is. And that's not saying that you're always going to see the truth for what it is, because you can become deceived just as easily as anyone else can become deceived. But you can also see the truth more easily than other people can see the truth when your third eye is open. That does not negate others' truths. It just exposes you to your own. So do not use, I have an open third eye, as an excuse to be a bitch. And that's just a fact. Okay? So, yeah. That was how to open the third eye and its side effects. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like, subscribe, comment, and share. Goodbye.